presentations. We'll do some notes here in a minute, but we'll have 5 different presentations, and I'll try to keep us on time. We're not doing 5 times 45, right? We'll just, and you'll get a sense of what's going on. And one of the reasons for doing this now is if you say, "Ooh, that's really interesting. I'd like to be part of that." Well, then you're here, and we're finding out about it in September because this is the time where we're thinking about getting going with stuff. So, okay. With that said, does anybody maybe some cool nature observations from the summer? Does anybody have something cool? Go ahead, Larry. Larry, the mic. Will that other mic work, or is it?
No, only this one.
Okay, so just speak up.
Yeah,
you don't have to get up.
I just wanted to report on the monarchs for the summer. We had a reasonably good summer. We had a monarch since early June, but then more came in July, and the numbers increased during the summer to the point where I was counting as many as 40 in the field. A week ago, there were still 38 that I counted in the field. I do a semi every other day count. That has dropped off in the last several days to the point where yesterday it was only 12. So they're heading south now. In mid-August, why they lose their ability to sexually reproduce, and then they head south. So, but they were laying eggs all right up until August 20th, roughly. And so Allison does all the finding of chrysalises in the field. If you've ever been to the open house, you know that we try to keep track of the chrysalises as well as, but we don't try to do that with the larvae. But I think you found we had, I think we have over 30 chrysalises still in the field. So they're still coming out of the field. It's a little late for them to go south, but they'll be supposed to get down there by mid-November. So they have a couple of months. But it's been a good year. So.
Anybody else got something that they'd like to share? Richard.
There's a very nice bunch of the lady crested orchids on the rail trail. You go to Cherry Lane, get onto the rail trail going west, just before you get to the back end of the Ellison Farm to the track that goes across there. They're just this side on the north side of it, adjustable further on. They were there last year, but they're expensive.
Cool. Anybody else? Go ahead, Carol. Okay.
Is it my imagination or an abundance of spiders?
If you've been in my house, it's not your imagination.
Yeah, same here.
Hmm?
Is there a reason for that? Because it seems to be overabundance of it.
Porky's Flangoy is the one that seems to be invading everybody's homes and basements and garages and closets.
This is more outside. I walk through the backyard. I mean, hitting cobwebs all the time.
Maybe it's humidity. I don't know. Is high humidity?
Oh, I'm not disappointed. I'm just wondering
Yeah.
why.
But I've noticed that there's skunks everywhere. In Louisville County, and they're up in Colchester County, Cumberland County, and all around here. It's amazing. I remember that's like 40 years since they were everywhere. And they got a distemper or whatever that knocked them all out. And they're just coming back now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anybody else? Cool. Okay. Well, we're going to hit a bunch of topics. Well, actually, speaking of my, let's wait. This was one of my major observations of the summer. That's me in northern Prince Edward Island. So, this is 1 year in 18, the high solar activity. Maybe there was lights here in May, and then June, July. Just this last night, it didn't quite get here, but not 3 nights ago. Didn't quite get here, but it still could be happening during the fall. I don't know. I was saying, we were talking about, I have a little app called Space Earth app, and it sends you a notification if it's a good night. It's not a good night tonight, I just looked. But anyways, it's pretty cool. Okay, so we have 5 presentations. I think Carol Jameson's going to talk about the pollinator project first, and then Liz Bateman is going to talk about her work with fish. I will talk about the chain lakes, and then Spencer's going to talk briefly about what he's been doing, and David Steele is going to talk about the trail restoration. We'll try to keep this to an hour or so max, and maybe each person will have no more than 15 minutes or whatever, and we'll go for there. I know Spencer's is going to be shorter, so. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol first, and I got to give you this mic, Carol. Put this on your collar as close to your mouth as you can. Can you get it up?
You put it on.
I gotta get it. Okay, I think we did good. Then you want to hold on to that or put it in your pocket or whatever. Do you know how to use the slides? You just click forward.
Okay. Do we get
Forward,
it?
back.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And that'll the next slide coming up. That's the slide you're on.
Okay.
So Carol's representing the pollinator project. Carolyn Green, who's kind of the lead on that, is in Newfoundland with a broken car. So Carolyn's
Yeah.
done a wonderful job of jumping in.
Yeah. Hi. So we're going to talk about the Butterfly Way project. Can you hear me? Do you want me to talk louder? Is that okay? And as Alan, up, okay. As Alan said, Carolyn Green was meant to give the presentation tonight. She's stuck in Newfoundland. Their car broke down. What a dreadful place to be stuck. She said to tell you that she's just had a wonderful seafood dinner, and she's sitting on the deck watching the whales go by. Okay? So she's given me her notes, so you'll pardon me if I write them, because this was a last-minute thing. Read them, rather. The title page, the BNS Butterfly Way project. Okay? This project was launched in 2017 by the David Suzuki Foundation, and its goal, as stated here, was to help people create viable pollinator habitats in neighborhoods across Canada. Okay, so the project has been quite successful with individuals, schools, community groups taking up the challenge. The people who join are called rangers, and they get free training from the Suzuki Foundation, but mostly through webinars. Okay? And gardens can be registered and are put on a map of Canada. The suggested goal is to get 12 gardens in each community close together to create a Butterfly Way project. As of last year, the website recorded 1,500 rangers trained. Now this is across Canada, 7,200 gardens established, and out of that, 119 Butterfly Ways registered. So that's the groupings of 12 is a Butterfly Way. BNS joined in 2017, right when the project got started. And since a big mandate of BNS is education, we decided to place gardens in public areas such as town parks with added signage. Local towns were asked to give us space in existing gardens with us providing plants free of charge. I should add, it's all native plants that we plant. Okay? Every town approached has given us a garden. So we have gardens in Wolfville, Port Williams, New Minas, and Kentville, along with other interested public institutions such as Prescott House and Port Williams. We now have 7 planted gardens. The photo on the right, right? You're right, yeah. Shows the Kentville garden being planted. in Miners Marsh. And some of you will recognize Carolyn Boudreau at the back. Why she asked me to say that? Anybody's guess? I guess she was the ex-coordinator, right? Yeah. Okay. And here we're planting the Port Williams Park. Okay. So there is the planting plan that had to be submitted for permission to plant the garden. In this case, some existing non-natives were allowed to stay, but I think we're working on trying to get them. Right?
Yes.
So that is and that's what it looks like 2 years later. So the first photo was being planted. So in 2 years, you can have a really well-established native garden. Okay. So this garden is at the corner of Gasborough and Main, where the police station is. So that's the first year, and this is a year later, is what it looks like. Okay. The plants have all been labeled on this one, and there is a sign that you might have noticed in a few places around that includes the BNS project, the town, and the David Suzuki Foundation. Okay. And here's a larger view of the sign. So you see this one would be Kentville, so it's from one of the Kentville sites. So that's what you'll be seeing around towns with this project. Yeah. Besides the gardens, the committee, and actually I've been derelict, the rest of the committee, there's Pam Heron, Brenda Turner, and Anna Sorelli, myself and Carolyn Green. So we form the basis of the committee, and we're always looking for volunteers to help us plant. So if you're interested in this project, let us know. Little plug, all right? So chief amongst the things that we do are information tables, mostly in the spring when people are interested in starting up their gardens. And we obviously offer them other information as well. So there's the Wildflower Guide, and she's got it here, authored by BNS members Carol Donaldson, who's me, not Jameson, and Howard Williams up the back. And there's also a photo, right, here's a photo of, sorry, I'm losing my place here. Okay, we also created and sold a sign for home gardens. And we should at this point thank Gary Conway for the science photograph and lots of other photographs that have appeared in some of the material. So you can buy one of those for $5 and have it in your garden as long as you're planting native plants. Okay. What does that one say? Oh, that's your garden. Right, okay.
With the sign.
Yeah, with a sign. So it must be on slide 15. All right. Here's the photo of the garden sign in the beautiful pollinator garden of Pam and Gary in Port Williams. Okay. So it demonstrates that native gardens can be just as beautiful as others. What's confusing me is she's got numbers up there that don't correlate to that. Okay, 16. Okay. And of course, we have lots of information on the BNS website. Okay, and the project itself is featured on the website main page with this beautiful photo. Okay. So bumblebees and butterfly milkweed. Right? You all knew that. Did you know that bumblebees are better pollinators than honeybees?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows that, right? Okay. Besides describing the project, there's also an extensive list of information on the Butterfly Way project, on native plants, on pollinators in general. In fact, we're becoming more of a pollinator project rather than just a Butterfly Way project. So we're starting to include facts about bees, moths, birds, other insects that all do a great job in pollinating. You've got all the resources on there. We have, Spencer's been posting a plant of the month on Facebook, and we also contribute a number of articles to Beyond the Tides, the BNS journal. Another interesting project that Brenda has taken up was to take advantage of the library same page platform. So those of you that are in the library will know on their website there's something called Same Page, and it allows the public to make lists. So Brenda has created 3 lists that showing the number of native gardening books that the library system has. And last year we started offering fall workshops. These are some of the posters here. For this fall, we're about to advertise a workshop on October the 5th, and it's on how to start a native garden, especially if you're new to native gardening and only have a small garden. Not everybody has the acreage that people like Carolyn have. So this should be an interesting one if you're just interested in getting started in native gardening. And finally, one outreach area is to highlight our partnerships with other local groups. So we've got attempted to get the word out to our local Valley Gardeners Club. We offer them presentations and invite them to the workshops. And I think Carolyn's actually run a workshop for them. And we offer to donate and sell native plants at their annual plant sale, which was very successful and raised a lot of money for the Valley Gardeners. We also go to the market every year on CD Saturdays, and we did another day quite recently at the market, just showing everyone how beautiful native plants were and why it was important to plant them. And we have mutual support with Friends of the Acadian Forest who are involved with the Harriet Irving Gardens at the university. And we've participated in their annual plant sale for the past 2 years. So that's the Friends of the Gardens, that's not us. And the final one, she says, read the slide. I really do. Okay, so the benefits are to educate the public about the importance of native plants and sustainable gardening, offer concrete actions for individuals to address the biodiversity and climate crises, and it builds community and demonstrates that individual actions matter just as much when it's part of a bigger movement. And that's the end. Any questions?
We'll take questions as we go, because otherwise we'll forget. So if anybody's got a quick question for Carol.
No?
You're peddling those signs.
I don't have any with me. Carolyn's stuck in Newfoundland, and she's the one that's got them all.
Maybe we'll try to bring it next time. There's a whole information table. She was
Yeah, we were going to have a whole information table, but we'll bring it next time. Yeah.
Putting pressure on some of the local plant nurseries to make more.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great.
It's a hard one though. It's a hard one because they're much more interested, even when they say they're natives, they're quite often the cultivars of natives. And often the cultivars don't produce the right pollen, they don't produce the right nectar, whatever. We could go on and on and on about why you should plant native plants rather than introduce, but I think you get the picture.
Yeah, but once you're convinced you should, it's how to get them.
Yeah.
Just a word of advice, don't put your patio table too close to your garden, because we had the goldenrod just fell over, and I hadn't realized it was just a buzz of bees, and I was doing the umbrella, and all of a sudden I had like bee bites, and I had to run upstairs, and help.
Right.
Good morning.
Yeah.
And then they were so laden with pollen.
Yeah, they could barely
You
move.
couldn't even, I don't know how they flew.
Yeah.
They were like laden, big sacks. It was quite fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating to watch them all. Right, I better sit down.
Hand me the mic and stuff. In about 3 weeks is about invasive plants and native pollinators and stuff. And there's an article about why regular native bees are better than bumblebees and a bunch of other things. Okay, next, from plants to fish. Are you going to explain how you got to this point in terms of BNS, or do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, kind of.
You're going to do it?
You can give your version of events.
I'll give you my quick version, and she can amplify it. Liz Bateman here worked last year with us and got a scholarship to do the poster of fish, and she'll tell you why fish are important to her. But then this summer, we applied for a grant in the spring for Spencer, so we could help subsidize him through the summer. And then we suddenly realized after we got the grant that Spencer didn't qualify and had various things, and he was out. So what are we going to do with money? We thought, Liz. So here's what she's been up to.
Happy to accept.
Just check that in. Yeah.
Can you hear me, everybody? Okay. So yeah, like Alan said, I was a summer intern for the BNS this past summer, and I was working on a project that was to develop a photographic field guide to the fish of Nova Scotia. A little bit about me. I am a master's student at Acadia in fisheries biology, and I specialize in tracking fish migrations with acoustic telemetry. When I'm not fishing for work, I'm fishing for fun. I'm an avid angler and outdoorswoman, and I also work as a freelance scientific illustrator. So I may have met a few of you earlier this year with my Minnows poster as a project that BNS contributed to, and I was really excited to share it with you all. And since then, I've worked on some pieces for the Nova Scotia Angler's Handbook, and I've done some research diagrams and figures for other biologists and publications. And more recently, the Nova Scotia Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture contracted me to illustrate the game fish that they manage. So those are a few of the paintings I've worked on for them. And the reason why the department wanted paintings of their fish is because full color illustrations are really eye-catching, and they transfer really easily to print media. So they wanted it for their angler's handbook, they wanted it for signage, for notices to anglers, that kind of thing. And also illustrating fish, I can make them very lifelike, but I can also make them represent a generic specimen. So I can remove like scars or individual markings like a torn fin and really make the painting represent the whole species, not just one fish. But the problem with this is that color is such a nuanced thing in painting, especially with fish, because there's color shifts, there's iridescence, there's reflections. So I need to have really good reference photos to work off of, because there's no way I could come up with the colors that you see in these animals. And those are hard to come by. So my partner Sam, who is also a fisheries biologist, and I decided to take matters into our own hands and get my own reference photos. So we developed an on-site transportable fish photography system, which is essentially a fish tank. You bring it up to the stream with you, and we have a white reflector screen, all these flashes. So really what you get is this really nice, crisp, clean, white background photo of a fish alive, breathing in water. And I will mention the first time we tried it, the very first time, we were invited to, I don't know if any of you know Bob Shields. He took us to his pond and let us photograph his brown trout. And it was really nice to be able to test it all out in this very calm environment, because turns out Sam and I knew nothing about photography. We left half the gear at home. We couldn't figure out anything. So it was really great to be able to work through the kinks that way. And then soon enough, we were out in the field. We applied for scientific fishing permits to be able to actually capture these fish. And we started going at it. And basically, we realized pretty quickly we weren't just getting one fish. We were getting all different life stages and color morphologies. So like this common shiner, we had a spawning male, which is just this beautiful red-tipped fins, a non-breeding adult and juveniles. And pretty soon, Sam and I realized that these are actually research-grade photographs that could have some real potential to be important fish ID tools in the province. So I talked to Alan and Soren, and together we decided that we could use these to develop a photographic field guide to the fish found in Nova Scotia's rivers, lakes, and streams. So with their support and guidance, we kind of came up with a plan. And this is just a test of what it's going to look like. So it's going to be just a little pocket guide you could put in your wader pouch. And we have the photos on one side, and then on the other side, part of my job this summer was actually researching and writing these chapters as well. So there's some basic ecological information about where to find these fish, what they're eating, where they spawn, their distribution, and the threats they face. And all of that is relevant to Nova Scotia so that we can go out and find these fish and learn about them in our backyards. So we were off. This was my internship, but really this was as much Sam's project as mine because it's for sure a two-person job just to run some of the nets as well as somebody needs to handle the fish while somebody's photographing it. And so when he was able to, we went all over the province, and when he was busy, I took other people. And basically it was a big treasure hunt, going through all these rivers, trying to check off species, and we made this big photo checklist so that we could keep track of our species and the different photos we wanted. It was not always successful. We left empty-handed many times. But I will say we also got exceedingly lucky in a few instances. So this is a very rare fish we were able to photograph. It's a native lake trout parr. Lake trout are native to Nova Scotia, but they exist only in one lake that we know of. And that we don't know how big the population is. It's probably very small. So it was super exciting to get this juvenile lake trout. Our friend Matt, he's in the photo up there, he studies lake trout, and he called us one day, he said, I just got a parr. And so Sam and I threw everything in the car and just got out there. So it was really special to be able to photograph that fish. Sam and I also got a marine stage sea lamprey. So lamprey are parasitic. They attach themselves to other fish and feed off the mucus, then they'll drop off and find a new fish. And they are like salmon. They come into our rivers in the spring to spawn, but they die here. So they come in, they're looking really big, mottled, kind of funny looking. But this is the marine stage one that lives at sea. And this one did not mean to come into our rivers when it did, because it attached to this shad, which is also anadromous. And suddenly this marine lamprey found itself in our rivers, and we, of course, grabbed it and photographed it. We also got a tiger trout, and this is a super rare natural sterile hybrid of a brown trout and a brook trout. They say if you catch a tiger trout, go buy a lottery ticket. And this is actually Sam's second, but we actually happen to have our photography gear with us this time, so we're super excited about that. So here's just a few examples of the photos we've collected. There were many. I'm still working through editing a lot of them. But what I'm really excited about is this collection. These are all the minnows that we have in our province. They are so hard to find, some of them. We spent a lot of time looking for them, and I'm so excited to be able to not only test my own ID skills, but now be able to develop a really robust ID guide to help other people in the field. Because as you can see, a lot of them look very similar. There's a real thing going on with the black stripe. Something else I was working on this summer is doing a little bit of underwater fish photography. I love snorkeling, and I love snorkeling with fish, but I thought it would be really cool to be able to capture in this book the things I see and feel when I'm underwater and just seeing the fish in their natural habitat. So unfortunately, I didn't have a ton of time to do that this year, but next year I'll definitely try to cross off some more photos. But we have an Atlantic salmon parr on the back side there. He was very shy. I couldn't get very close to him, but the school of common shiners in the middle were the opposite. They were pecking at my face, at my fingers, and these are some white perch here that I found as well. That's all I have for you now. I want to extend a really big thanks to Soren and Alan for entertaining my very ambitious ideas and trusting that I could pull it off. And they've supported, encouraged me, and helped me brainstorm this whole time. So very grateful to them. And thanks also to anybody who helped me in the field. And thank you all for listening.
Great questions.
That's a creek chub. It's a really common fish, but in the spring they get their spawning body. The males get these big spiky tubercles, their face shape changes.
Are you doing anything with the commercial fishery or any of the ocean fish?
Not at this time, but I think
Don't get her going.
I would love to, but maybe after this is done. A lot of them were angling, and a lot of them were seine nets. And for the minnows, a lot of it was minnow traps. Turns out minnows can't control themselves around moldy white bread, so that didn't take very long to get a lot of them.
When will your guide be available?
That depends on a lot of factors. I'm hoping soon. I'm hoping by maybe the end of next year, but it really depends. We still have a lot of fish to find, and they're getting harder and harder because we've crossed off the low-hanging fruit. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is going to be an ongoing project next summer. We'll have to figure out how to fund her, but we'll figure it out, hopefully. Hard to do this on your cell. Okay. Is that okay? We're going around the province, so I'll go next, I guess. And talk about the chain lakes. I'm going to slide through the first part of this quickly because I figure that many people are familiar with this, and I'll spend more time on the latter parts, which is the new things. As many of you know, we are, last summer in June, we started this whole idea of proposing to the government a proposal for 12,000 hectares in southwest Kings County. When I say we, there's a committee of people, Soren, Larry, Kathy Vey, Nina Newington, Mark Tipperman, Allison Stewart, and I might be missing somebody. Larry, who am I missing? Spencer's been part of it. Anyways, there's a number of people. Apologies if I missed you right away. This is all part of, you'd be familiar with the Nova Scotia Environmental Goals and Climate Change Act, which said 20% of the province should be protected by 2030, 15% by 2026. We're at about 13.5 right now. And they released a strategy in December last year to try to get to 15 and 20, although it didn't say a lot about how they were going to get there, but it's ongoing. We have a good candidate in Kings County because whereas the province is 13.45, Kings County is 4.5. And that's basically Cape Split and Blomidon and a little piece of Cloud Lake. There's a little piece here or there. There's a Wolfville Reservoir, I think, over there. If you look at Kings County, this is an interesting map. This is from Global Forest Watch. The pink is areas that have lost their forest cover since 2001. And the bold, that's pink. Which color? It's blue as a gain. According to this, basically, we've lost almost 20% of our forest cover since 2000 in Kings County, and we've gained about 3.5%. If you notice where there's not much pink and blue is it's down here, which is where we're proposing this area. That doesn't mean this hasn't been cut, but it hasn't been cut as much recently, although there's still a lot of cutting, and we'll show you that next. Why a protected area on public land? To protect biodiversity. What a great opportunity for recreation and tourism and the benefits that come out of that economically. We obviously can protect endangered species for health and wellness, and for climate change, all that sequestration of carbon in those trees and forests. So this is the area. I think many of you may have seen this. It's a weird shape. It's in the southwest corner of the county. Why here? This area in general is the only undeveloped area that's public land in the county that's large. It has some pretty special wetlands and waterways. Some people have been on field trips down there. Some of the people in this room I know. There's a lot of recreation potential here. Relative to other places, there's a lot of biodiversity. And there's the reason this thing cuts down like this is because Kings County has zoned wind in here, and Kings County would not support this if we impinged on their wind zone. We're still hoping somehow to cut across that, but at this moment we couldn't get their support, which we needed without it. Ideally, to create a wildlife corridor, you'd be across here, but a lot of this is private land. We can't get to that. This over here is particularly around Gully Lake. There's some great biodiversity, so it's very much worth having. So there's been a lot of cutting here. This is thanks to Larry and Kathy, who've done an immense job of mapping all this stuff. The light blue is the boundaries that we're proposing, and then yellow has been cut since 2016. Red has been cut before 2016, and orange has been partially cut. So you can see how much of this area, this county, has been cut, right? And this is a low cut area relatively. So it's huge, the amount of area. And of course, as I say, this looks like it hasn't been cut, but don't be fooled, it was cut back before we know. There are, having said that, some little pockets of old growth in there that we visited. There's some really beautiful trees. They're just here and there in little splotches, but they're there. And there's also a lot of endangered creatures here. This is the list that, thanks to Alain Beliveau and James Churchill, mostly have generated a lot of birds and a lot of lichen. Those are the easiest to find, and then mammals are tough. There are martens there. I'm not sure what the status of martens are, and don't think they're not common for sure. I don't know if they're on a list or not. But this gives you a sense of some of the birds that have been found and down there. And we're always keen. There's an iNaturalist working, iNaturalist group. So if you are to go down there and you spot something, please put it on iNaturalist, and that contributes to the database, which this is important in terms of getting this area, because part of the protected area criteria is endangered species. So the more endangered species we find there, the better. What will happen when it's protected? It means no more resource development, particularly forestry and mining, except if there's existing commitments. It means that recreation is permitted, walking, canoeing, whatever. Hunting and trapping is permitted, no problem. Existing snowmobile and ATV trails are guaranteed at the outset, but you can't add new ones, which is important in both ways. And then if you had a cottage that you have to right away over the land, that's assured too. So it's to take the land as it is now and protect it. You don't take things out. That's really important in terms of maintaining support for this in this area. What we've done, we've gotten letters of support from Kings County, from Port Williams, from Kentville, from Greenwood, from the Kings and the Mid-Valley ATV clubs, and from the Snowmobile Club. And Berwick, I think, is in process. And we still have to do a few more towns: Wolfville, Kentville, Wolfville, Canning, New Minas. We sort of started down that way. There's a public petition, which is hopefully we're trying to get a hold of Chris Palmer, who's the MLA for the area, to go to the legislature. Many people have signed that. That's going ahead. And then we've met with the Department of Environment, Department of Natural Resources, with Chris Palmer, with Keith Irving, and Spencer's been doing a bunch of stuff on social media with us. So all this stuff has been happening over time in terms of what we're doing. We had a field trip down there in July. This is Chris Hutchinson, who runs Hutchinson's Maple Syrup, which abuts onto the protected area. And he has, oh gosh, maybe somebody that went, he has 30,000 tree taps, I believe. He sends maple syrup all over the world. His biggest country that he sends it to is Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, what do they do with maple syrup? They put it in their coffee. So that's great. But this is part of his the forest. This forest is leased from the Department of Natural Resources. So this is an alternative to clear cutting. And Chris, basically he said, acre of forest, maple sugar forest, would net about $3,000 a year in maple syrup. If it's cut, it would net about $3,000 the year it's cut, and then it would be another 60 years until you cut it again. So you can look at the economic difference between what he's doing, and he would love to have more land leased. Unfortunately, the Department of Natural Resources won't lease it to him because they want to cut it. So this is a real kind of big issue to think about in terms of how we manage our forests. Now I'm kind of into the current stuff. The big thing is that in the last year, we've been asking for a moratorium on cutting within the zones, because you don't want to cut something, you protect it and then you don't cut it. And they're kind of going the other way. So unfortunately, this spring, I think some people wrote letters. They are proposing to cut an area right here. And we then discovered back last summer, they basically approved to cut an area here, which they've started to dig into with a road this summer. And both of these are really problematic. Part of the thing, the one this spring, which people wrote letters about, you don't know what happens because they put it up, they say, what's the public think? And then they never tell you what happens. So we don't know what happened. We do know this one went ahead. We didn't know about that, so we didn't object to it. We didn't know to object to it. The one from last summer, this is the road they built this summer at that spot. I mean, this is about 30 meters across for a road. That's just the road in, and that doesn't count as part of their partial cut. All this area here is sugar maple. And it looks quite a bit like Chris's area. Chris would love to have this area. These trees in here are about 100 years old, and they're mostly sugar maple. And they're going to cut them for hardwood, mostly for chips. Instead of what we could, if it was either protected or if it was here. So it's kind of stuff we're working on. We are going to, this is the other thing that they've done that's current here is that many of you would be familiar with the Leahy report, which recommended how we change forestry in the province to be more environmentally responsible and sustainable. And it recommended a triad of 20% protected area, which is what we want here, 70% ecological forestry, I'll put that in quotes, and 10% high production forestry. Fortunately, what they've done is they're not, so far they say they're moving ahead on the protected area, but they haven't moved, and we're still in limbo. And they have generated a map of the province about where they'd like to do the high production forestry. So they want to do the high production forestry before they figure out where they're going to protect. Some of the high production forestry is within our area, specifically this chunk up here, and some over there. So anyways. So kind of just to sum up, what we sort of need now is we need the Nova Scotia Department of Environment to move ahead with assessing the 20%. We talked to them in February, and they said they were going to start developing criteria by June, and we talked to them in August, and they said maybe by the end of the year. So it's slow. We've been working to get support from the municipalities. We are specifically want a moratorium on cutting in the area before they decide where it's going to be protected. We need letters to the government objecting to proposed cutting in the protected area, so they shouldn't be cutting now. So that's kind of where we're at and what we're doing. In this fall, we're going to try to work on letters, and we're going to work on trying to outreach to various organizations and keep going. So, yeah, that's where it's at. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
What's the animal in the?
That's a martin. Yeah, that's our little, we had a logo. One volunteer did that up, and there are martins in this area that have been seen. So Chris keeps track of it. He's out there. He's seen martins running around his maple syrup plantation. So.
Is this the sort of area that the Nova Scotia Nature Trust is involved in as well?
we probably, I suppose the Nova Scotia Nature Trust would be valuable if we could get this going. Remember I said there's the private land in between to build that net across? I think they mostly work to get landowners on side. They don't necessarily, the province, this land is provincial land, so all the province has to say, protect it. But in that zone in between, I think that's where that would be really important, if we could get the province committed a bit first, if you know what I mean? Yeah, a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Spencer.
Okay.
Oh, do you want me to come over there?
Yeah, maybe you can come over here and I'll go up there and we can switch spots.
What do you want me to do over there? Just watch things?
Yeah, you can share the screen and then you can go along. It's
Oh,
a
yeah,
PDF.
that's right.
Hello, everybody. So I'm gonna hope that this isn't gonna take me too long. We had a really fantastic summer with the BNS. Sometimes we slow down a little bit, but this year there were lots of really exciting projects that went along. So it was a pretty busy summer for us and lots of organizations around. So the three main highlights that I wanna talk about. Yep. Not to worry. Yep, so we go down to share first, and then we should go to the Acrobat, and you'll be all good there. Okay. So the three main things that I want to talk about this summer were moving a forest. So in partnership with Save Our Old Forests, we were able to host a unique interactive theater piece. A couple of you were able to attend. It was a really, really interesting evening. It was a joint fundraiser, and we received over $600 of donations, and so that was our half, and the other half went to Save Our Old Forests. So over $1,200 was raised for both organizations. It was a company from South Korea and an Acadian actor as well who sort of partnered up and made an interactive evening of theater. It was really, really interesting because this was actually the third movement of moving a forest. So they had done 3 iterations of it before, one in South Korea, one here last year in sort of a different facet, and then this phase of the project. And so they're looking at doing 2 more volumes, one again here in Nova Scotia and one more in South Korea before they sort of wrap the project. We then hosted a butterfly field day. So thank you to Larry and Allison Bogan for hosting their annual Monarch Day. There were over, when I last counted, there were 21 people there and 15 of them were children. So it was a really, really great event. We saw monarchs in all different stages of their cycle. There were lots of chrysalids. I think quite a number of children found some new chrysalids, which was really exciting. Even while we were there, we got to see a monarch emerge from its chrysalis. So it was kind of nice. There was a lot of shouting to get everybody back in time, but most people made it. And then later on in August, we were able to produce a children's theater piece. So Linda Levy-Fisk, who's a local actor with the Traveling Trunk Theater Troupe, 4Ts, she partnered with us to develop a interactive children's play around monarchs and the importance of pollinators. So we did this in 3 different places. We did it in a community garden in Berwick. We did it at the VCLA, which is the Valley Community Learning Association. We did that at their center in Kentville. And we have a butterfly pollinator garden there. So we were actually able to do our pollinator theater piece in a pollinator garden. And that evening was very well attended. We partnered with the Kids Action Program and with the VCLA, so that way we could do a supper and a show. So it was sort of like a little dinner theater thing. We had interactive coloring pages afterwards, so kids and adults who enjoy coloring alike could go off into the garden and find the plants and color them. It was really fantastic. And then we did one final one in Port Williams, again with one of our Butterfly Way gardens. And we had quite a number of children. We were unsure how many would show up that day, but it was a beautiful day and we had lots of kids show up for that one. So we were able to do 3 different shows, and it was about 30 children and over 15 adults who attended those theater pieces over those 3 days. We were also able to help support SOOF in their SOOF stock, which happened at the end of August. We helped Nature Nova Scotia with a couple. SOOF is Save Our Old Forest, so they're a sort of sister organization down in Annapolis County looking at Goldsmith Lake and hopefully having a protected area down there as well. And then Nina Newington sits on the Chain Lakes Protected Committee. So we're sort of working together for these 2 large groups. But SOOF is quite a large organization in Annapolis County, so it's really nice to have a mirrored organization in both counties working towards the same sort of goal. So they had SOOF stock. They had, I think, 15 different local bands that were playing over 3 days, over a weekend. It was really fantastic. We were also able to help Nature Nova Scotia. They did 4 or 5 walks down in this area this summer, which was really great. And then we helped Birds Canada, the Atlantic chapter, put on 3 events. There was a swift watch, there was a migratory bird watch, and there was a bird count of some kind. I got that email and sent the things out, but it was in a time where many things were happening. So I just read that and said, yeah, sure, I can share. So that was a really great thing. So we were able to help a lot of organizations make sure that they get the words out in this area. So these are just 2 little photos from the event. So over here is the moving a forest. So the 2 principal actors, the creator, and 2 additional characters, which were puppets. It was a really interesting evening, and we were able to host a talk back afterwards. They're always looking for information about how it went. So I thought it was a very successful evening, and having a theater degree, it was kind of fun to watch them and try and figure out what they were doing.
And they also donated half their proceeds, which was $150.
Yeah. Yeah, that was us. Yeah, the 650 came to us. So this summer was really fantastic. We were able to show lots of different facets of the organization. We were able to connect with lots of other organizations. And when it's normally a quieter season for us, it actually ended up being a relatively busy one. So we look forward to more things here in the fall. We just hosted a fungi course, which sold out in 48 hours. So if you missed your tickets, sorry about that. You'll get them next time. I think we're going to look at doing another one of those pretty soon. But other than that, any other questions? Thank you.
I should say maybe this is an appropriate time. This is Spencer's last month with us, which is very unfortunate, in the sense that he has a thesis he has to write, and a theater contract in Toronto, and a number of other things. So he's leaving as of October 1st. So you're gonna miss me, so.
And yes, I will miss the organization as well. So I actually need to pay my membership dues so that way I can keep getting the emails afterwards. But I very much thank the organization for helping me through this last year. And I really thank all of you, the volunteers. It's really fantastic to see an organization have a 40-year history, a 50-year history, my apologies, a 50-year history continue to grow and have such a great basis. So I really thank you for that, and I thank you for your support over this last year. So I wish you all the best going forward. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe on that side, in terms of the organization, just we'll update you. We're looking at trying to hire someone short-term to replace some of the basic things that Spencer doing, and then the board is doing a strategic planning process we're almost done with, which will be done before the annual meeting, to look at how we support our staffing and what we do moving forward. Just revising what we already did one, but this is a sort of sharpening and revision, and so in November there'll be a turnover, and we'll sort of go from having it developed to starting to more implement. Not that we're not already doing things, but if anyone, and we do have a couple of board spaces as of November, so if anyone wants to be on the board, this is a pitch. Okay, last but by no means least is David Steele, who's going to talk about all the things they've been doing in Wolfville. So put that in your pocket or something, and I'll put this on your
on the table.
Sure.
And what is this for?
Just put it in your pocket.
Okay.
That's the power.
Right.
Oh, and I said
Yeah.
by advancing the slide. So,
Guess I need to get out of the glare and the fractal light there. Yeah. Yes, good evening, everyone. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the project we have going in Wolfville in the Reservoir Park. First of all, I would like to thank BNS organization for welcoming our project and our group under their umbrella. And I do represent a little group that we formed and called ourselves the Friends of the Wolfville Trails. And so we formed really out of a...
Can't hear.
Speak up? Oh, sorry. Yeah, we formed really out of a concern for the runaway growth of some invasive species along the trail sides of the Wolfville Reservoir Park and also the Millennium Trail. A number of us in the group are landowners whose properties backed onto the trail and found these invasive species flooding over into our properties and the town doing nothing about it, so we weren't very happy with that either. But all of us are enthusiastic trail users and we're concerned about what was happening in the park and along the trails there. So we finally got the town to agree to establish to do a project with us doing the work as volunteers. And so it was a pilot project they agreed to, and so we laid out 3 areas along the entry trail to the Wolfville Park, starting from the parking lot at the top of Sherwood Drive. We have a picture of the park there. I wonder if we've gone by that one yet.
no, I don't have a picture of the. Well,
Of the lake, the
oh
pond.
yeah, the
Yeah.
lake is here.
I'm not sure if you're all familiar with the Reservoir Park
I think they
in Wolfville. Yeah, so here's one of the ponds, and it's certainly one of the probably the most popular park in Wolfville. And these 2 ponds, which were reservoir for the town of Wolfville, their water supply previously, are now very popular for swimming, and even there's fish in there. Kids will take in their fishing rods up there. So there were 3 invasive species that we were really focused on clearing out. The project really had 2 phases. First was to remove invasive species in these 3 areas. And second of all, the phase 2, which we've just begun, is reforesting those cleared areas with native species. And so trying to, because the state of the infestation of these invasive species is such that the biodiversity of the forest is seriously under threat. All 3 of these species, the Norway maple, the glossy or the multiflora rosa, and the worst one of all, the glossy leaf buckthorn in that area. All 3 of them are extremely invasive. They're all amongst the worst of invasive species, what some ecologists would call ecology or ecosystem disruptors. So they affect not only the plant community, which they're able to dominate, but they affect the insect populations and the soil biome. So this is an area where we've actually cleared out the invasive species, and you can see how open it has become now to a lot more light, and there's bare ground there where we're going to go in and replant with trees and shrubs and all levels of growth in the forest. This is a bunch of the brush and the invasive plants that we've removed, and just waiting for the town to come along and pick it up. This is one of our big artillery pieces for removing the buckthorn, and it's called an extractigator, invented by a guy out in BC. And using that, you can pull a buckthorn plant even 10 or 12 feet, just with very, very little effort. Ones this big take a little more effort, but eventually we would, you can see there's a long bar, steel bar there, about 6 feet long. So we would use mattocks like this to go around the root ball itself after we cut the tops off those stems. Some of those, 4 or 5 of those stems would have been 20, 25 feet high. And so this whole area was shaded before we started taking out all these clumps. And and here's one of our workers with one of the removed plants, and you can see the root ball there. And there's another one, yeah. So they're quite something to get out.
Which species was that?
So that's the glossy leaf buckthorn. Now here you can see under a big mother tree, quite often we would find concentrations of little tiny baby plants. The female mother tree produces a lot of berries, and each berry has about 4 seeds in it. So they drop to the ground around the base of those trees. So this handful, probably more than 100 plants in there. So that shows you how dense in one of these, several of these areas, the density of the buckthorn, well, I should say altogether in these 3 areas, each 250 square meters, we pulled out over 10,000 buckthorn plants. And each of the 250 square meter areas, we divided into a grid of 25 equal areas, each 10 square meters. So this way we were able to calculate plant densities and tabulate our overall results. So as I say, altogether, we removed more than about 10,000 buckthorn plants. In some of the some of the areas, the density, there would be, the highest one was about 850 plants in a square meter. And so in one of the blocks, the distribution was very uneven, as I say, because of under these big mother trees. But in one area, there were 4 blocks with no buckthorn. In the other 2 areas, there was buckthorn in every block throughout the 250 square meters. So since then, we've actually started some replanting. And here, this is a little area that is not included in the 3 main areas that we talked about. And here we're planting, this is the native iris here, the blue flag.
Right there.
Oh yeah, there it is.
That's what it looks like in 2 years from now.
Yeah, we also planted some marsh marigolds down there along that water. That was a very special little area. The only one that was really on the shore and right along some water. But of the other 3 areas, the area closest to the parking lot did have some sugar maple in it. It was the only one of the 3, but only a couple of sugar maple and almost 60 Norway maple. So that was closest to the streets. And we figured since the town had planted Norway maples all along the streets of Wolfville, and they spread fast, I think the spread was coming from the streets into the forested area. The 2 other areas further down the trail, we only found 19 in one and 7 in the other, instead of 60 at the one closest to the streets. So that was for the Norway maple. There was very little multiflora rosa in this area, but later on we went around the ponds and removed, I would say, roughly 100 plants of the multiflora rosa. So right now we've pretty much finished the clearing, and we're moving into the replanting, as you can see. And today actually we're out and planted a couple of white pines and some other small shrubs further down the trail. Unfortunately, our project didn't get started until, by the time the town approved it, till the middle of May, which is a little too late to apply for grants. So in terms of our fundraising, we pretty well had to rely on individual grants, and a couple of small businesses have donated. And we have one tree farmer that's actually donated about 20 10, 12-foot trees to us, including red oaks and sugar maples. So we're really happy about that. But the others we've all had to buy with our own purses. So we're hoping we can get some donations from people, and we've also had a bit of a changeover in volunteers. Some of the people that help us clear in the spring are now unavailable, so we're looking still for a few more new volunteers to help with the planting. So those are our two big things that we're concerned about now, is getting some more money to buy plants with, and a few more volunteers to help with planting. So I've got a little bit of a shopping list.
So if anyone's interested in volunteering, why don't you talk to David afterwards?
Yeah.
And if you're interested in donating, you can go to the BNS website and you hit donation. And when you go to donations, you'll go to the Canada Helps, and then you can click and you can choose where your donation goes. So you can just click Wolfville Restoration, Trail Restoration, and then that money doesn't go to BNS in general, it goes to this project in particular and to buy plants.
Yeah. And in terms of the range of plants, I mean, everything from like ground cover plants like ferns that maybe are paying $15 worth, to shrubs that are $30 to $50 worth, to like a red maple that's going to cost us $200. So that's about the range of individual
I suppose
things.
if somebody had plants in their woods or yards that were surplus, that you might accept them.
Some of those, they have to be native. We're all native species, of course. And we have had some small donations. We just got some blue vervain offered to us. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions about that? Back there.
So the direction is that you are looking for native plants and native trees, am I correct?
Well, yes, we're looking for yes, pretty well all of it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I have a question, and I'm wondering if anyone here might know. I'm particularly interested in getting some seedlings of hornbeam, not a native Portland ironwood. That's a native Nova Scotia tree. It's the densest one we have. Does anyone know? I can't identify it myself, although it's of the birch family, I guess. But I'd really like to see them more common than they are. I don't think they're very common. I'd like to know where I could get some seedlings for that, and I would hope that you would put some up there as well.
Yeah, it's not a tree that I have seen or know about in a local area.
There's an enormous hornbeam. If you go to Mercator Vineyards and you go down that trail that goes down to the Dykelands, on the right-hand side is a huge hornbeam.
Sorry, I didn't catch where you said the first place. Where was it?
Mercator Vineyards. Yeah. And another, I don't know who actually owns that piece of land or whether they allow you to take the cutting, but that's where there is one. And another one that I know of is in Brooklyn. There's a bridge that goes over the river there, just past the hockey arena. And if you turn right, there's a little cemetery that's up a lane. And there are several actually very old hornbeam trees there, ironwood, within that cemetery. And again, I've no idea how you would go about getting seedlings or who owns the land or anything, but they are places that I happen to know that are hornbeam.
Thank you very much.
There's a lot of hornbeam seedlings. If you go down to White Rock, where you can walk along the canal there. You go down and walk along the river. There's lots of seedlings down there. Wow. You just pull out.
I don't know way of identifying.
New one.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice if we could find a few of those to add. I know in trying to choose trees to reforest, I was just reading a chapter in the Nature's Best Hope, Douglas Tallamy's book. He talks about reforesting and choosing trees that will contribute the most to biodiversity. And they've done a lot of research about, for example, the number of caterpillars that are a variety of caterpillars that are found in different tree species. So like, for example, in oak trees, they found up to over 500 species of caterpillar in an oak tree. And some of the other ones that seem to host a lot are the cherries and the willow trees. Those are the biggest ones for variety and number of hosting of caterpillars. And one of the lowest one in contrast is actually one of the very abundant tree in this local forest is the tulip poplar with only 21 species. So it's quite a story about the oak tree. And so we are putting in 14 or 15 red oak into the areas that we've cleared. So I think we're on the right track there. One of the other ones that I'm very fond of is the red maple. And I was reading about it that it's one of the earliest and most abundant sources of nectar and pollen for our pollinators and insects. So they're big, the oaks and the red maple are big contributors to the health of the forest.
All right, well, that's your tour through the BNS for
Yeah.
this
Thank you.
Monday night. There's a lot of
Thank you, Alan.
neat stuff. Thank you. There's a lot of neat stuff happening, and we appreciate it. And as I say, there's always room for everyone to be involved. So don't feel shy. You're interested to talk to the right people. I think that's it. Next month, it's a little in the air, so we won't announce. There's possibly something with the Valley Gardeners, but that's not fully set up yet. So we'll stay tuned, and you'll find it.